I think a lot of times FBI agents in media are represented as like sexy and cool, and I did a bunch of research and like went down a bunch of rabbit holes and found all of these like female FBI agents who were kind of talking about how much they hate that they're depicted that way, because for the most part they are underpaid, and that was like a very big thing for me and Jing. I was like, I want Emily Suits to feel like she like found these at Ross. Like she like, actually my mom saw this movie and the first thing she said to me was like, "You're really not pretty in that movie." And I was like, we did it right.
So I would love to start with the genesis of Forge and why Art-Forgery?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you to Film Independent. As you've mentioned, they've been huge day one supporters. Literally, I think Film Independent was my first lab, and that brings me to the genesis of Forge, which is I graduated from AFI into the pandemic in 2020. And during that time, I wasn't sure if I was going to keep writing or directing, and I thought to myself, if I was going to write one script, what would it be? And it was Forge. I've always been a huge crime film fan. I really like 80s and 90s crime films, like To Live and Die in LA. I'm fascinated with the topic of art forgery, and a lot of people don't know that the largest art forgery scandal in like recent history, the art forger was a Chinese guy who fled the country and has never been interviewed. So this was something that really inspired Forge.
That's incredible. I'd love to talk a little bit about the evolution of the script. You had a different protagonist in a different location, the draft that you took through the lab. Can you tell us, how did you land on the siblings and on Miami?
Yeah, definitely. At first, you know, it was set in New York. It was about two best friends. And the notes I kept getting in the Film Independent Screenwriting Lab were to make it more personal. And everyone really liked one of the friends, Coco. Everyone was obsessed with her character. And I realized really quickly that I should make the script more me, even though it was a genre film. And it was my first foray into genre in general. Like before that, all my shorts have been coming of age shorts and very personal. I'm from Miami, so I grew up eating in the Chinese restaurant that's in this movie.
That's incredible.
And we shot there, actually. It was crazy. He didn't close for us, though.
So complicated shoot days.
Complicated shoot days, but he did find it funny that I made his family art forgers. But yeah, I made it, you know, more me. I made it set in my hometown, and the formative relationships in my life, familial relationships, have been with my siblings. I like to say both my siblings are in this movie because Raymond is a little bit like my brother and Emily's a little bit like my older sister. So it really is like a family film at the end of the day for me.
And I loved the tropical Chinese setting because it felt like a really natural way to integrate Emily into Raymond and Coco's world. But going back to the labs, can you tell us a little bit about your experience in the screenwriting lab?
Yeah, I thought it was really great because I was 25 when I got into the screenwriting lab, and it was the first time I'd been through any kind of development program. And I think it's so important because I really was on the edge of just giving up completely. And I didn't know anyone at Film Independent. Like, I had never even thought I would get in, and I did. And suddenly I had a support system within the lab, not only from the program itself, but from the other writers, some of which were like so much more experienced than me and who I still reach out to for advice, right? So it was awesome. Like, I can't ever say anything bad about Film Independent, so.
Thank you very much. Let's fast forward a little bit and talk about the casting process. Can you tell us, like, how did you find your Emily, Raymond, and Coco?
Yeah, we had a open casting call. So we auditioned actors from all around the country for every role. We saw around 5,000 people, so it was great in the sense that Damien Bao, producer and casting director, he was able to make that original post go viral. And because of that, like, it felt like we were turning over every stone to find the actors that would eventually be in this movie. And you can talk about it from your perspective as well.
Yeah. First of all, Damien, who is our casting director, but also a producer on this project, is such an incredible human. He picked me up from the airport when I got to Miami in his pink Jeep. It just like got lost a few times. It was just like really set the tone for what was an amazing shoot. But yeah, Damien and I had met, I feel like a year or two before. And then I think I told you this, but he texted me one day and was like, hey, just to let you know, I sent like your reps this script, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what script? And I had never gotten it. They didn't send it to me. So then he sent it to me directly. I read it and like just fell in love with it and knew that I just wanted to be a part of it.
That's incredible. And something that I loved about Emily as a character is we have this preconceived notion, FBI agent in the art crimes division. It's going to be like really sexy and cool. And then we see her at work and she is giving a PowerPoint presentation to a board conference room. Yeah. So I'd love to hear a little bit about how you developed the character and got inside of her head.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I think so much of it was already on the page. Like, it was such an incredible script when I read it. And then Jing and I really talked about wanting this person to feel like a real person. I think a lot of times FBI agents in media are represented as like sexy and cool. And I did a bunch of research and like went down a bunch of rabbit holes and found all of these like female FBI agents who were kind of talking about how much they hate that they're depicted that way, because for the most part they are underpaid, and that was like a very big thing for me and Jing. I was like, I want Emily Suits to feel like she like found these at Ross. Like she like, actually my mom saw this movie and the first thing she said to me was like, you're really not pretty in that movie. And I was like, we did it right. So I know I never told you that. But yeah, we really wanted Emily to feel like kind of like a, you know, a working class person, someone who really cared about her job, but who felt like she really had to prove herself at work and nobody really cared about the things that she cared about. Yeah, it was really, really fun to sort of play in that world.
Yeah, and speaking of stereotypes and preconceived notions, something that the story does so well is play with it and also have Coco play with it to her advantage. Can you tell us a little bit about how you developed that element and also just how you developed Coco?
Yeah, well, I grew up in Miami and Malaysia. I say this because, you know, my parents spent 6 months in each place every year, which is crazy. But I grew up going back, you know, and forth as well. And in Miami, the Asian population, I believe, is less than 2%. So actually, Damien scouted my own brother when he was on the street. Like, he got handed a card. And I think because of that environment, right, like the stereotypes that Asian people, you know, fall under in America are definitely emphasized in that environment. Mm-hmm. And so when I was in America, I was very much functioning under the premise that like a lot of people thought I was inherently good and well-read and smart. And obviously being a mischievous kid, I would play with that, especially growing up in Miami. And I think I used that in Coco's character. Mm-hmm. But obviously it's a double-edged sword, and obviously a stereotype is never a great thing, even though it seems like it could be. Yeah. So I think the film is me really breaking apart what that means and what it means to live under that stereotype.
Another element that I really loved was the kind of cat and mouse dynamic that Emily and Coco have, which Coco's clued into a little bit earlier on than Emily. How did you approach that relationship? And this is a question for both of you.
Yeah, I know it sounds crazy to like want to have 3 Asian leads that are all intersected in a Miami movie of all places, mm-hmm. but it, like I mentioned, it really is like a small community and everyone knows each other. Everyone hangs out at Tropical Chinese, and so I didn't think in my brain that it would be too hard to weave together these storylines. I also wanted to play, like you said, again with the stereotypes and maybe Emily's own conceptions mm-hmm. of her and her people. So mm-hmm. That's how I approached it.
And it's interesting how, I mean, Emily's introduced to them in such a familial way, so she's already going to have like a certain perspective of them.
Yeah, exactly. Like she has her own inherent bias.
Totally. Oh my God. I will say too, I just think that Andie Ju is such an incredible actress.
Unbelievable.
Like watching her on set and also seeing her in this film, I'm just like, it is so rare for Asian actors to get this sort of opportunity, and just to see her completely knock it out of the ballpark, and I'm just so, I'm just so happy that this movie exists and that this is like a showcase for her talent and Brandon's talent and all these. And Brandon, this is a random story. I don't know if you know this. Brandon and I met because one of my first credits on television was on this Cartoon Network show called Incredible Crew. Brandon was a series regular. I had one line. And now I'm in this movie with him. Like, things come around. But I think what is so exciting about this film is, one, it exists in a world that we normally don't get to see Asian people exist in. And in addition to that, it's so multi-layered and nuanced in the depiction of different types of Asian folks. And like Jing said, how they perceive each other. And that's sort of the game that's happening, is what happens when the biases that we have as a society are also the ones that we start to believe about ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well said.
Yeah. I'd also love to talk about this film's relationship with art, because there's clearly a deep love of it with Coco and Emily, for sure, and then art as commerce, and just like, can you tell us a little bit about how you developed those themes?
Yeah, definitely. I love art. I've, always been part of the art world in the sense that some of my family members are artists and my sister's an artist. And I also lived in Miami for most of my life, and Art Basel was a huge part of it. And that coming to town kind of changed the culture where I lived. But at the same time, there's also, like, the banana on the wall at Art Basel, and the ATM where you take out fake money. So the question of what art means and what people see in it is always something that's on my mind, especially as a filmmaker. And the truth is, like, a lot of the art market, there's so many forgeries out there that we don't even know about. People estimate, I think, something from 20 to 30%. And there's also the fact that there are a lot of paintings that never see the light of day because they're a store of money and they're kept in the vault somewhere. So those are things I think about quite a lot, and it just came naturally to me.
And how much research did you do in the art world and the art forgery world?
A lot. I mean, I spoke to a lot of art forgers, actually. Some of them caught, some of them not. A few hung up on me after a while. But they are really interesting. And I always found art forgery fascinating because it's like Coco's monologue in the movie when she's talking about being a conduit in some way. They're really crazy in so many ways, but very fascinating. And there's this book called the Art Forger's Handbook, which literally teaches you how to forge a painting. And we use that a lot for the movie. Yeah.
It's incredible. And so can you tell us about the process of, because I believe the paintings were made for the film. Can you tell us a little bit about that process?
Yeah, so don't try to write a low-budget indie movie with a ton of art in it, because it turns out to be very expensive in the sense that you can't make it contemporary art, and so a lot of the art in our movie is public domain American art, and then there are the fictional painters like. John Redfar does not exist. He's completely made up, and so we had a few Miami artists work with us on the Florida landscapes.
That's very cool. Yeah. I'd love to talk a little bit about the villains, specifically Holden, because I'd love to hate him so much. Can you tell us how you developed that character and what some of your inspirations were for him? Yeah,
this actually came up. I was telling Kelly this, and during the New York premiere, a lot of people started confessing their crimes to me. It was crazy. People would just find me and start telling me about how they were involved in Fire Festival, for example. And I went to high school with someone who was involved in that whole scandal. What? And I remember thinking, we were on a swim team together, and I remember seeing it pop up and being like, how did you get from there to here? And so in a lot of ways, that character is inspired by that. It's, of course, also a Miami scandal, so I drew inspiration from that as well.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I can't believe you knew someone in the Fire Festival world.
Yes. Yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit about how you established the look of the film?
Yeah, I've been working with Leo Perman, who's the DP of this movie. He absolutely knocks it out of the park every time. But we've been working together for 10 years now, since AFI. I think the first short we did together was 2017. And we collaborate really well in the sense that we try to plan as much as we can out. Of course, that's not realistic. But when we were looking for inspiration for this film in particular, we referenced the 80s and 90s movies that we love so much. So that's where it came from.
Yeah, I particularly love the shot of Coco hovering over Sandy, and that's when you're starting to realize, oh, wait a minute, like the power dynamic is not exactly what we think it is. And Sandy was so great. Can you talk a little bit about T.R. Knight?
Obsessed with him.
T.R. Knight was the first person who attached himself to this movie. Incredible. I say attached himself because he read the script because someone sent it to him to look at for Holden. And he was like, no way. But I could be Sandy Baker, and Sandy Baker at the time was a completely different character. And TR met with me, and he read the script from front to back, and he made me feel like Christopher Nolan. Like, he was so emotional, and he loved it so much. And I can tell, like as a first-time female director, for someone like that to take a chance on me out of nowhere was like really awesome. He's the best. Yeah.
Such a great opening sequence. Yeah. Circling back to Fast Track, which is another program that you did with us, can you talk to us a little bit about that part of the process in the sense of, I'm just wondering, did you struggle at all having this film made? As you mentioned, it's very rare to see 3 Asian leads.
Yes, we pitched the film 136 times. That's including Fast Track, because you do pitch a lot during that.
You do pitch a lot?
That's the caveat. And the truth is, like, I did get asked to, like, maybe change the race of the characters, or someone suggested that I set the movie from Holden's point of view, which I always think is crazy because he doesn't really do much.
He really doesn't.
Yeah, so I think it was incredibly hard to, like, get the film to this place. I was in the 2021 screenwriting lab, so it's been half a decade since then, and we're finally seeing the film in the theater. But Fast Track was a huge part of that because we didn't meet someone directly in that finance market, but someone introduced us to Dave, who was a huge part of making this movie.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Love to hear it.
Yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit about the production of the film? It sounds like you had a good time.
Yeah, so we did have a good time, but it was, it's an indie shoot, and I think the film hopefully looks way more expensive than it is. And the truth is, like, we made a lot of compromises with locations, a lot of favors were asked. A great example of this is the first time we sent the film to Dave, the first cut. He was like, I would love to see more of the beach club. Where are the wides? And I was like, there are 2 chairs. There is no beach club. We lost half the beach that day because Shakira and Leo Messi were having a photo shoot. So it was really Miami.
As one does.
You remember that, yeah. Yeah, and also, like, you're asking favors, so, like, Tropical Chinese didn't close. Mm-hmm. So our overnights were 10 p.m. to 10 a.m. Like, it was brutal. So, yeah, there were definitely challenges, but, like, so many people came through for us. Like, our Miami crew was so amazing. So I really have nothing to complain about at the end of the day. Like, it wouldn't be possible without all those people.
I would also say that the set that we were on, I mean, I think Jing just, like, set the tone for such a wonderful creative environment. Like, it felt like, well, first of all, it was running very smoothly, which doesn't always happen. And everyone was always just excited to be there, and it was very much as if, like, the cast and crew, like, we were all pals, which made it so much easier to be, vulnerable in these situations where you're just, like, trying to, like, play and figure out what the scene is. But yeah, I would credit that to the amazing crew that we had and also the amazing leadership that we had.
Yeah, and speaking of the dynamic, the sibling dynamic was so lived in. Did you have time to rehearse with them? How did you achieve that?
Yeah, so with the open casting call, one thing that was really cool was that we got all the way up to chemistry reads. So we did, I think it was 2 rounds of callbacks and then chemistry reads. And in those sessions, it became very clear that Brandon and Andie had a really natural chemistry as siblings. And I did have, I believe, 1 day of rehearsal with everyone, or 1.5 days, but that was it. And without that natural chemistry being there, I'm not sure it would have happened, to be honest.
I would love to talk about the ending specifically, how excited Coco was when she got called the mastermind. Can you tell us a little bit about how you landed on that?
I think the ending is definitely like the most divisive part of the movie. People either love it or hate it, which I love. I love how divisive it is. And in many cases, like, people come up to me and tell me what they think Coco was feeling in that moment. And I think that goes back to the blank canvas thing. It's like, what do you think she's feeling? I obviously have my answer, but I'm not going to say it, out loud. But I will say I do think Coco definitely gets away.
Oh, yeah. So that leads me to my next question. Will there be a sequel?
Hopefully. Forge 2?
And let's do it. And where do you think Coco is now?
Somewhere in Europe.
Somewhere in Europe.
Someone in Europe, yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This has been an incredible Q&A, and thank you so much for sharing the film with us from the very beginning, from the screenwriting lab through this screening.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming, guys.